Hi everyone, Jared here. Time for the market video update. As you can see, we're just a few minutes from the close of the U.S. markets, just about three minutes, 3.5 minutes here. Looks like the Dow's going to end just a little bit down, S&P a little bit down, and oil is a little bit down as well. Like I've said a little bit over the last couple of days, I'm looking for oil to really kind of break through some of those highs, and that will happen if the dollar continues to weaken and oil strengthens. Both those will be good indicators to watch against one another. Commodity prices typically will go up with dollar weakness, and dollar strength usually drives commodity prices down. So that'll be something to keep an eye on. As far as news goes, we have a little bit of news coming out of China this afternoon. Next couple of hours, we saw consumer confidence come out of the U.S. a little worse than expected, and the GDP out of Canada a little worse than expected. Nothing too horrific, but definitely a little bit on the low side there. Coming into Wednesday, we have manufacturing PMI for the UK. That's a little bit of a mover. The ADP, the private sector job creation report's coming out tomorrow, and that's a bit of a mover as well. So we'll be on for that, and we'll see how that's moving. And then we have the ISM and a few other reports coming out of the US, and so those are all pretty big ones. And then trade balance out of Australia is also something to keep an eye on. Here's where we are, guys. We are at a point of just waiting to see. We're going to see this on the charts, but we've talked about this several times, this double top on the dollar index, and the fact that it's come off that double top pretty good, and it's starting to kind of consolidate around this 79 area, 79, 79.50, right around there. If it can make another run at that, which it's just tough to say if it's going to be able to or not. We almost have to just wait and see if it happens instead of trying to anticipate anything. But if it can make another run at that high, I think it's going to be able to break it, and we're going to see that kind of trend carrying on through possibly the rest of the year. Here's where we are, which is kind of a tricky, difficult, interesting situation. The euro dollar has had lots and lots of resistance that it's come into contact with right at this 38% fib, which is right around 132, 40, 50, 35, 40, 50, kind of in that 15, 20 pip range right there. Lots of resistance. You can see that the market's made a couple of attempts at that level and then finally broke through, and now it's making an attempt at it from the bottom on up, and it's not been able to break through that. But likewise, we can also see a whole bunch of support, right, I'm going to get rid of this line right here, which is about 130.75, 130.50, kind of in that range right there. And that's where the euro dollar's stuck. It's stuck between this pretty serious resistance and this pretty strong support right here. And we're just kind of waiting to see what it's going to do. Is it going to make a break? Is it going to continue? Obviously, it can't bounce around here forever. It's a pretty small channel. Of about 175 pips or so, but is it going to break down or break up? It's testing this little ascending trend line, and if it gets below, our real kind of key level is about 130.50. If the market gets below that, the euro particularly, I think it's got probably 100 pips in it. But likewise, it could be looking to bounce off these lows and continue into those highs, and it's just a really tricky setup that we have right now. You can see on the slightly shorter time frames here on the 4-hour chart that we've had a bit of a break down here, and we're just slightly below some of that key area, which was the 130.75. But 130.50 is still definitely in play, and that's what I'm talking about in the kind of buy-sell zone. If we break 130.50, I think this euro is going to sell off pretty big. But if we don't, if we kind of stay in this general area, you can see that the low here is about 130.40, 40, 41, 42, right in that area. And so this looks like a good area to try to pick up some buy opportunities, and we may be looking to do that, but I'm still a little iffy on if this euro is really going to try to make a bigger break lower, and I think that is a possibility as well. So I'm just going to be doing some research this afternoon, trying to figure out where some of the big money is and what some of the sentiment is there, so that we can kind of anticipate this trade just a little bit, because this should be a good opportunity to buy the euro with stops just below this here. We're looking at probably 45 to 50 pip stops, because if this breaks, like I said, that 30.50, really about 30.40, if it breaks that, then I think it's headed straight south. But if it stays above that 30.50, which we're currently at about 30.80, if we stay above that, then I think we've got an excellent chance of at least retesting these highs, if not reaching that 38% once again, which gives us 150 or 160 pip run, which is great. However, looking at this smaller time frame right here, we can see a little ascending trend line on the 5-minute chart that looks like it's probably going to give us a little bit of a break. So if we test these lows once again, that's where we're kind of in that tricky territory of, is this going to break out down, or is it going to continue making a run up? I think that there is definitely a possibility of, if this does push down 20 to 30 pips into about 130.50, I think that there could be a decent opportunity of trying to buy down there with just some small stop losses below this area, risking 20 to 25 pips for a chance to take this back up. If it breaks that and stops us out, look for some retracement and then start selling this thing and taking it down, because this area right here, right where it is crucial for a continuation up or a continuation down. And we don't know what's going to happen just yet. So once again, a dip into about the 130.50 could be a good buying opportunity, with stops just literally 15 or 20 pips away, 20, 25 pips away maybe at the most. And looking at that break on that trend line. Otherwise, if it just continues to consolidate and doesn't get back below that 130.75, then we could be looking for a buying opportunity, but we'd need to have stops below these lows here, which now expose us to about 40 pips or so. So it's just really a little bit of a wait and see kind of opportunity. Same thing is happening on the pound dollar. Very, very same thing is happening on the pound dollar. We got into a little sell this morning right on this break here, and it kind of chopped around, took a couple of pips, got out some small profits, looking for a bigger run down, but ultimately it was not able to really give us that. Pound dollar's in the same kind of a situation. It's broken out of this range, but just like the euro ran up to the 38% fib, this pound has run up to the 61.8, which you can see right here, which is just shy of 158.00, where there's a lot of resistance already. We can see that the market tested this several times in December and just kept coming off of that, and here it is right back to that point again. The pound dollar has made a very consistent run up of about 400 to 500 pips from the low with very little retracement. You can see on this daily chart that it's only had one red candle in the last, I don't know how many, but 15, 12, 15 candles, somewhere in there, maybe even more. And so for a big run like that and to come into such strong resistance, I think the pound dollar is probably going to have a little bit of trouble getting through that level, which is why we were looking for some sell opportunities here. But it looks like there's not as much selling pressure as we were looking for. So this pound dollar is at a bit of a wait and see as well. You can see on the slightly larger time frames, here's our trend line, and the pound dollar is just kind of coming into into this high, into this resistance, and it's still above this trend line, and it's quite a ways away from a break. So I think if the pound dollar breaks this 157.35, which is a pretty strong little resistance, or excuse me, support here, then we'll probably get a run into some of these lower levels, probably good for 35 to 50 pips. However, if it just runs down to this support right here, 157.35, and consolidates on it and doesn't break, this could also be a good area to buy and put our stops just below this area right here and buy back up into this high, which is about a 50 to 60 pip run. But again, we're kind of in a little bit of a holding pattern on this one as well. But those are a couple of short-term things that we can do on the pound dollar as well as on the euro dollar. Euro yen definitely made a nice little breakout here. We saw the euro yen hopping around. It looked like it was going to make a run of this bigger trend line right here during the UK session, and it didn't. It made a little bit of a run and then a big break of this trend line. The euro yen, it's going to be interesting to see what this one does, but it's definitely come up to that 38% fib, and it's coming off that one pretty hard. So I think we might be looking at some bigger reversals on this euro yen. So what I'm going to be looking for on this guy now, most likely, is a little bit of consolidation, a little bit of retracement up, and some breakouts down. So if this can start to work its way up just a little bit, give us just a little bit of retracement, then I think it'll be great for a breakout down. It's already passed some very key support areas and has broken through that. So a little bit of retracement up into probably the 100 mark, so 30 pips or so. Draw some trend lines in there, and I think we'll have a nice breakout to at least take it back into these lows and beyond. If we don't get any retracement, you can see a very fine channel right here, and this will be something okay to kind of scalp on the short term, kind of breaking through this 99.60 or so area and just watching it very closely and trading it lower into those areas. But I'd like to see some retracement and then probably a little bit of a bigger rundown on this euro yen. Pound yen, on the other hand, is not quite giving us that much of a movement. it's holding a little bit stronger like the pound dollar is, and it's just kind of in a very interesting area. It's broken out of this channel, bounced off very nicely at this high, and it's just come right back down to this trend line. So the pound yen actually looks more poised for a continuation back up. But again, not going to follow the pound yen too terribly closely for the moment. But there are a couple of things to keep an eye on there. Aussie dollar, just quickly here, the Aussie dollar is double topping pretty nice around this 106.80 area. Wasn't able to break its own high. Very nice double top there. Still, we're ways off of some of these trend lines. We've got some larger ones to be looking at very potentially. So I think this pound, or excuse me, this Aussie dollar can be good if we get some breaks here. You can see that it's starting to look like it might work its way a little bit lower. We've got a 1 hour crossover that's looking pretty good, and we've got some short-term retracement that's kind of in the works here. So if this Aussie dollar breaks that, I think we could have something worth trading. You can see this little double top right here. So if we break that with some, keeping some stops just above that and trying to trade it into the lows, that could actually open the door for some larger downside movement into at least this ascending trend line before it makes another potential run at that high, which I think it will. And I think that its next real target is going to be about 107.30. So it's got a good little run to go, but I think we've got a short-term breakout, like I said, to trade it back into these lows, about 25 pips or so, and then look for some buying opportunities off of this trend line, off of this gap area, which could be somewhere around the 105.80, 10600, in that kind of general area, 105.80, 105.90. We could find some nice buying opportunities. So keep an eye on that. And gold, just quickly on gold, we're seeing that it's still just teetering around these upper levels. So I'm curious if it's going to break, if it's going to hold, what it's going to do. So again, we're on a little bit of a holding pattern on this gold situation as well. It looks like it's holding pretty strong, but if it really starts to kind of dive off these levels, then I think we're going to have a good solid area to work with on the downside there. So keep an eye on that. One thing that could potentially be done, the pound dollar is only sitting at about 157.50, 60. Pending orders to buy this for possibly the UK session to break of 158.00 could be interesting. So 158, 10, 15, something like that. If this pound dollar breaks this high, I think it's going to skyrocket. So some pending orders up there could be interesting. Euro dollar is not that close, so I don't think we could do the same thing with the euro dollar, but the pound dollar I think we would probably be able to. So keep an eye on that. We'll watch that, and we'll have some entries and some more details coming up in the chat. See you guys there.